Well, welcome in once again, everybody, to is going to be another super edition of the 19th Hole podcast for golfers. I'm your host, Dennis Silvers, and we got a couple of huge stories that are happening right now in the world of golf that we're going to talk about with our very special guest, one of our favorite guys to have on the show. Let me tell you a little bit about Brian Gathright. Brian is an 11-year member of Golf Magazine's Top 100 Teachers. Pretty good run. And Brian is a two-time Southern Texas Teacher of the Year. Brian has instructed multiple tour players as well as instruction to a wide range of talent from elite college players to amateurs and kind of everything in between. Brian also travels to clients throughout the country, as well as being featured at various corporate events, which I'm sure is a lot of fun for him. Some of his students have been, as an example, PGA Tour champion Jimmy Walker, Nota Begay, and five-time LPGA Tour winner Dorothy Dellison, who I miss. I loved watching Dorothy play. I wish she'd come back, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Anyway, let's bring up Brian Gathright right now. Welcome him onto the show. Thank you, my friend, for spending some time with us. We really look forward to always to having you on the show. Brian, what is in your opinion, what's the quickest way for weekend amateurs to drop their handicap besides taking lessons from you?
Well, the thing that I think that most amateurs miss on is they don't go, as an amateur golfer, it typically means that they've got a day job. They practice golf when they can. And one of the things that I would try to encourage all of our viewers is that go to the golf course or go to the practice range or go even at home in the evening with a plan to get better. And I think that's one of the things that's often missed. You see day in and day out here at River Crossing or at our other location over in the Sugar Land area at Sweetwater Country Club, you see a ton of amateurs out there hitting balls, pounding balls for exercise, and not really executing a plan. And I think it's so important to really have a true talk with yourself. Where am I strong? Where am I weak? What do I need to do to get better? And then really lay out kind of a time management program. I encourage all of my young players to really build a schedule. And it's funny, my best players all live on a schedule. And yet we see so many of the just the everyday golfers that they just go out there and they end up wasting a lot of their practice time, not really, working on anything. And then you lose that time. In the world we live today, time is such an important factor to getting better at anything.
True. That is very true. Good advice. Because they're just beating balls and, working on a lot of times the wrong thing. And that's not going to do them any good at all, and it becomes super frustrating. And you start getting frustrated, aggravated. Well, you do that anyway when you play golf. That's what makes the game so great. Can you be?
Dennis, one other thing I was going to add is that I think sometimes too amateurs tend to practice what they're good at. Yeah,
True.
If they hit the irons well, they want to just practice irons. And there's nothing wrong with having some positives and negatives, but you really do need that assessment to be really honest with yourself and know what the difference is going to be. And I think that's a great point.
That's a great point, Brian. And often I ask, and let me ask you this, when somebody new to the game takes up the game, I don't know how it happens, but like you mentioned, they become better at a certain part of the game than others. I don't know why that is. Like you said, all of a sudden, a guy is a very good iron player, or he's got a good short game, or he hits a really nice tee ball, and you wonder why he can't take that and transfer it, so to speak, to other parts of his game. Why do you think that happens? Yeah, I just took up the game and I find myself really being able to have a good short game for some reason. It's a mystery.
Well, a lot of it too. I think so many times when in the short game in particular, if you see someone that's got great visualization, great hand-eye coordination,
Yeah.
great touch, and maybe they played other sports as a youngster, maybe they were a basketball player, baseball player.
Good point.
So many times there's underlying factors to it, and that's one of the
Right.
things that I always try to do in an interview with a new client is I want to know. I want to know their interest. I want to know what they do uh, outside of golf, and especially if they've got a passion for a sport, even if maybe they didn't play the sport competitively, but say they play some pickup basketball,
Right.
or they may have played
Right.
baseball as a youngster or whatever. It's just easier to relate to them and sometimes actually transfer ideas from the sport that they're more familiar with, especially if they're relatively new to the game, as opposed
Yeah,
to,
100%.
golf can be pretty, there's a lot of information out there. It's pretty overwhelming at
Oh,
times.
boy.
And I always remember talking back to my mentor and Harvey Penick is, you know, especially, with good players, it's probably easier for someone that's in my profession to mess someone up than it is to help them sometimes. And I always look back, and Harvey always made the comment that you really want to be wary of a player that is playing at your level that you think has a bad swing, because what that typically means is that guy's kind of figured out, that maybe those three wrongs that you see in the golf swing, he
Yeah.
may have figured out how to make them work and make it right.
Right.
So it's really important to understand what you're trying to do conceptually as a coach, what you're trying to do conceptually as a player, and make sure you can blend those things together when you're working with someone. And
Yeah.
the better you can relate to them, I think the easier it becomes for the pupil.
Yeah. Well said. Brian, can you become an elite player without having a good mental game?
I don't think so, Dennis. I think that's I'm very fortunate in that you mentioned Jimmy Walker, Nota Begay, and Dorothy, one of my favorite, and Dorothy has a family now. She's living in Albuquerque. She's as happy as she can be. I keep in touch with her and
Great.
keep
Yeah.
in touch with all of those other players. But pardon me, I've got a young man named Mac Meisner that just got his PGA Tour card this year by way of the Corn Ferry Tour, and Mac and I have worked together for I think 14 years now. And one of the things that I started with him at a very, very young age and watched him develop and grow. And the one thing I've had 6 players in my career that got their status on the PGA Tour and played from, basically no tour experience. Every one of those players, you could just tell they were different when you first met them. I can remember when I first met Noda, when I first started working with Jimmy. I told Mac's dad, I reminded him of this the other day. He called me about a week after. I mean, we talked the day he got his card, but he called me about a week after, and he goes, I'm blown away that Mac has his PGA Tour card for 2024. And I reminded him of a conversation that we had when Mac was in high school, playing in a high school golf tournament. I even remembered the hole we were on, and I told him, I said, we were walking on the 11th hole. And I made the comment at that point in time. I said, Mac's going to be a PGA Tour player someday. And you could just tell very early on with all of those players that I mentioned, Jimmy with Noda, with Mac, with many others, that they're just mindset wise in a different area. Mac called me literally within a few minutes of when he signed his scorecard at Victoria National in the last Corn Ferry Tour event. He finished third. He had to finish in the top 5 to get his card. He finished third in the last event, led the field in greens and regulation. And, he talked, I congratulated him. And I mean, we didn't talk 20 seconds about that when he said, I'm going to take a few days off. I want to get down to see it's time to get to work. I've got to get better. And you start thinking about that. Most people, when they achieve a lifelong dream, they're pretty excited about that
Yeah,
and
yeah,
forward. And he immediately just went beyond that. And
yeah.
that's the way he's been in his career. I've reminded him every step of the way. He shot 61 in the high school golf tournament, shot 59 this year on the Corn Ferry Tour. He's been successful. He was a Walker Cup player. He set a ton of records at SMU, was their number one player, got them the NCAA championship early on in his career at SMU or into the match play portion. And you see that, but it's because of that mentality, that work ethic, and he took it into the classroom. I think he made 1B at SMU, majoring in finance. So it's not just that mentality on the golf course; it's how he handled his life off the golf course. And those people that are successful run their life that way, and I really admire them. And it's great because it also gives us a chance as coaches. When you have those special players like that, we learn from them as well.
Sure. No, he's going to be somebody to watch on the PGA Tour this coming year. So, kudos to you for that. What is I was going to say major problem, not a problem, but what do most of your students, Brian, come to you for? Is there a commonality? They want to hit it further. They want to learn.
I think everybody wants to hit it further.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
It's interesting. I had a lesson yesterday actually with a young man, and we were talking about this and this search for distance, and now obviously with what's going on with the USGA and everything. It's one of my better college players, and a gentleman named Johnny Kiefer, who's going to be a superstar. He's really a great college player, 5th-year senior at Baylor University. And we were talking about the golf ball rollback. And one of the things that Johnny said, he goes, I understand why people are, upset because in my personal opinion, I think golf's, and I made this comment to him, I think golf's in the best position it's been in my lifetime. I don't know why we're change the rules of the game now. I hate to see the golf ball roll back for a number of reasons. Number one, I'm older and don't hit it as far. but secondly, I made the comment with Johnny, and he said he was talking to one of his teammates who's really been pretty adamantly opposed to it. And Johnny said, and interestingly said, until I actually reminded Drew Wrightson, another young man that bombs it, both of them hit it with a ball speed of over 180 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
And Johnny told Drew, he told Drew, he said,
wow,
Drew, I understand, and I get your passion for not wanting to roll the ball back and everything. He goes, but you do realize it helps us more than it does anybody, right? And that's the mentality of your best players, the guys that bomb it. Your dispersion with a long iron is a lot broader and more wide than you're going to have with a short club.
Right,
and,
right, 100%.
So you roll back the guys that are swinging it where the ball's coming off the face at 183 or 4 miles an hour. Now they're going to hit a pitching wedge instead of a gap wedge, and you and I are going to hit a 4-iron instead of a 6-iron. And
right.
That's a whole different level of
they're
dispersion.
Totally,
players.
Brian. I've talked to a lot of people about it. Everybody I have talked to disagrees with it. I disagree with it. I think it's stupid, but okay, and it's going to take place, in about 4 years or something? Give the tour one ball to play, and like you say, it's going to affect the amateurs, not the tour players. But let the amateurs do what they need to do to enjoy the game, and the tour players is a whole different thing, and it's very disruptive. Not for the ball manufacturers, for the club people to some extent. But people, and I think you'll agree with this, fans that go out like to see these guys bomb it. They like to see these 330-yard drives and that type of thing. And I don't know. I just don't know how long it will last or what, and it's for the sake of, saving some of these courses, not making them obsolete, but I don't know. I don't buy that. But anyway, we'll see how that goes.
I kind of got you sidetracked on what people ask for in terms of that, but I think the majority of the amateur players are searching for distance. I think
no doubt.
And I think that's going to actually make it even more so now. And
Yeah.
The other side of it, though, is I'm very fortunate in that I teach a lot of really kind of my forte has been developing players. I've been fortunate enough. I had to figure it out when I moved over to River Crossing recently. Yeah. Our GM asked me how many college players I'd had through my career and how many schools. And I didn't have a running total. I did years ago when I had an office manager, and when I left La Cantera back in, I left there in 2002. I knew what the total was, but I started, remembering back and trying to put players together and everything. And I'm very proud to say I've had somewhere near 400 players play at 82 different 4-year schools around the country. And
wow, that's awesome.
I'm extremely proud of that. So because of that, I feel like I get to see a lot of young, really talented players that are looking to try to move up to that next level. So what I've really tried to do, Dennis, in my profession here, and especially here in the recent years, in developing players, I've really tried to develop a game plan for how to get players there. And like I said, I've been very blessed in that I've had a lot of really talented players that have put their trust in me to try to guide them along the way. And there's 3 components to being a successful player. And I go back to a conversation that Harvey and I had many, many years ago. Harvey and Ben Hogan were speaking at the National PGA meeting, and they were doing like a 2-person panel discussion to the membership. And one of the questions that came up was they asked Harvey first to name the 3 most important clubs in the bag and why. And Harvey listed the putter first, and he said the reason was because it's the club you hit the most number of shots with, which is very valid.
Right.
The second club he listed was the driver, and the second most number of shots are hit with it. And the third was the wedge. And he said, when you add in the distance control wedges, the pitches and chipping around the green, well, that's the third most used club in the bag. And then they asked Hogan the same question. And quite frankly, it's probably the closest thing I ever came to agreeing with Hogan more so than with Harvey, because I had such a great respect with Harvey. But Hogan listed the exact same 3 clubs, but in a different order. He listed the driver first, and he listed it this way. He said, I think it's more important, especially for golfers playing the game at an amateur level too, to hit the ball in play.
Right.
Because they're not going to be super excited if they're constantly hitting it out of play and then one putting for double bogey. And he listed driver first, putter second, wedge third. But the thing that's to be said with that is I've really tried to instill the importance of all 3 of those areas into all of my younger players. And I think it's super important to do that in terms of your practice and your focus in your practice, because you and I both know to go to any driving range in the country and people are out there hammering, they'll hit 157 irons, and then you ask them, well, how many 7 irons did you hit yesterday in your 18-hole round? And they think through and they say, well, I don't know, 3. They may have had 4 putts and missed the green with 3 wedges from 50 yards.
That's a great point. That's a great point. That's a great point.
I try to kind of develop a game plan for them, and I really encourage players to build that practice plan, stick with it, stay the course, and know that a lot of slow motion work, and a lot of that can be achieved at home at night.
Right.
This time of year, we don't have the advantage of having that daylight
Correct.
after work for a lot of our amateur players. And I encourage you to get a mirror. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to good players. The whole back wall in our new teaching building in my bay is a mirror, because that was one of the things that Mac really loves to work with. I like it for good players. You can have all the technology in the world, but there's no replacement to be able to just look back there when you're making a backswing to waist high and see where that club is, see how your posture looks,
right.
and
That's right.
all of that. So we've got a big mirror. We've got every bit of technology in the world. I've got force plates. I've got a 4-camera system. The one camera that I'm really tickled with is I have a vertical overhead camera, and with Johnny Kiefer that I was mentioning earlier, we could, and I even showed him this, we could look at all 3 of the cameras. We've got a camera in face on, we've got a camera down the line, a camera behind him, and he looked as square as he could be in all 3 of those cameras. And you look at that camera vertically from the top of his head, his hips were about 5 to 7 degrees more open than his chest and shoulders, and he was hitting some flares to the right and a few pulls. We squared that up with the overhead camera, and I mean, it literally took us 3 swings to notice that, square it up, and he was spot on in a matter of a few minutes. And so I think it's a blend of technology, guidance, and most important, a game plan.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's going to bring me to my next question too. But Brian, hang on. We're going to step away. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have a lot more with our special guest, Mr. Brian Gathright, who is in the great state of Texas. Stay with us. We're going to be back right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody, to more of the 19th Hole Podcast. We're having a great conversation with Mr. Brian Gathright. And I was remiss last week, I mentioned to you, but that putter that you just saw from Greenway is right here. Here's that beautiful brass plate. This is a company in Vancouver, Canada. They're the only ones that make putters with these beautiful wooden heads. And they sent me one, and they're just absolutely beautiful. They feel great, great grip. They have a series of them, and I'm so grateful that they did send me one, and I really enjoyed using it last week when I got out to play a few holes. So go to Greenway Putters, take a look at what they've got. I think you're going to fall in love with some of them. They're unique, they feel great, they look great. And give it some serious consideration. But you know me, I need the hole to be about this big, really, to make a lot of putts. But that's not the strongest part of my game. But this helps. Greenway putters. Anyway, back with Mr. Brian Gathright. Brian, why do so many amateurs seem to underclub? You've played with a bunch of amateurs. You've played in pro-ams. You've played in club events. They seem to underclub for some reason.
I think the biggest reason, more so than anything, is they really truly don't know how far they hit the ball in the air. And I can't tell you with the we've got all the technology with the launch monitors and everything, and have for years in our bays and in our business. And it astonishes me how many amateurs think they carry the ball probably 10 to 15 yards further than they do with even with shorter irons.
Right.
And when you see them get into a situation where, they've got a club that they think if they hit it perfect that one time,
Right.
it may have actually gone that far. But in reality, you and I both know that they don't carry it that far on an average. And a lot of times it may be they play in firm conditions. They really don't pay attention to where the ball lands.
Right.
And they get in a situation where they just don't have a clue. And I really encourage all of my players to pay attention to how far it goes in the air. And everybody's got either a rangefinder or some type of technology now to give you that distance. So many of the ranges have the distance monitors on them, and really pay attention to how far your ball goes in the air. And most importantly, not on your best shot. On an average, if you're going to go out and figure it out, well, throw out the longest and the shortest and try to average the middle ones, and you'll have a little better idea.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's interesting. And that's true what you say. You've got to figure out what it is in the air, and that's the real number, not when it hits and runs. And also, I'm sure they find out, Brian, and you've seen this, if they really lean on a club to get that extra 10, 12 yards, most of the times it's going to screw their swing up. They're going to hit it in the woods. They're going to hit it in the water because they're trying too hard to get too much out of it. I once played a round of golf, and I purposely took one club more because everybody's, I'm going to go over the green, I'm going to fly the green, I'm going to be chipping back, this and that. I took one extra club for every second shot I had into the green, and guess what? I didn't fly the greens. I maybe was on the back of the green, but I was fine.
I always tell a lot of my amateur players, I said, always remember the earth doesn't end at the hole. You actually may have some room behind it.
That's
so many
right.
times, you'll see them where they don't take the pin location into account as well. And, if the pin's in the front half of the green, you want to miss it long anyway. The last thing you want to do is be short-sighted. So the only time you wouldn't want to, possibly do that is if the pin's in the very back of the green, and even then, most of the time, players still wouldn't hit enough club to hit it past it.
That's exactly right. And I when I did that, I was playing with a teaching professional. I said, I'm going to be long. He said, hit it. You're not going to be long. Trust me. And sure enough, I was just on the back of the green, but I was putting. I was on the dance floor. So there you go. It's a good lesson to be learned. How does a person, Brian, that wants to learn how to play this great game figure out or find out what particular swing philosophy is going to suit him or her the best? Because there's a lot of swing philosophies out there, as you know.
I think the most important thing, and this is, I try to tell any new client this, that the first and foremost, you have to do your homework. You have to do your research as a golfer. You've got to find someone that you can relate to. Yeah. I tell players all the time, I'm not for everybody. I'm a coach. I really look at myself more as a coach as opposed to someone. I'm not the pat them on the back, send them down the way, make them think they're better than they are. They're coming to me to get better, and sometimes you have to have some hard conversations. I had one last night with a young man that, I asked him point blank. I said, do you really want to play college golf? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, yeah, I know. I hear you say that, but I've asked you to do a number of things that you haven't followed through with. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you really want to play, or do you just like telling your parents that you want to play and your buddies that you want to play? Because there's a real difference there, and you have to make that commitment in anything. And the thing that I would tell you is what's your goal? And in finding someone that philosophically works with you, the other thing I always try to tell players, if you go to see a coach and he tells you something that doesn't logically make sense, it really and truly, you need to ask why. And the first lesson with players, I make sure that I not only tell them what they're going to learn, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, but most importantly, why, because change is hard. And, if people think change isn't hard, I always share this with them. If you brush your teeth right-handed is something you've done thousands and thousands of times in your life, if you think change is easy, go home tonight, if you do it right-handed, do it left-handed. And if you try to go at the same speed, you'll probably put the toothbrush in your ear a time or two before you're done, because it just doesn't happen. But, I think if you just understand that, find someone that you can relate to, find someone, if you're not doing this for a living, you're doing it for fun, find someone you enjoy spending time with that can guide you. Harvey was famous about telling, he liked to guide a player on their journey in this game. And it is a journey. There's nothing magical. There's nothing quick. The secret's in the hard work, as you well know.
Right. How did you first get involved with Harvey? And Harvey is obviously a very iconic figure in the game of golf. How did you two meet up and get involved with each other?
It was the greatest coincidence in history in my life, and it was life-changing for me. I was running a huge junior golf foundation in Aspen, Colorado. We had a great charity tournament and everything. And I had a dear friend who had played tennis at the University of Texas that I grew up playing golf with her younger brother. Her name was Susan Watkins. Susan was the ended up as golf coach at the University of Texas. But Susan had played tennis at the University of Texas and had gotten a job at Austin Country Club. And she was my assistant in Aspen. And she had talked to some people down there. She and Harvey were really close, and she found out through Harvey that he was going to partner with Golfsmith and start a golf school. And long story short, she said, you ought to talk to them about that. You'd be great at doing that. We had a huge program we were running in Colorado, and it was going very well. And I reached out, lo and behold, and I went down and interviewed, and I amazingly enough got the job, and I was his original director of instruction. And Harvey's famous for teaching Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite. But what I always tell people that he should be known for, Harvey worked with Kathy Whitworth, Betsy Rawls, Mickey Wright, Sandra Haney, and Sandra Palmer, and those 5 ladies won 252 times on the LPGA tour.
That's strong.
And no disrespect, Butch Harmon I consider a friend, and spent a lot of time with Butch back when Noda and Tiger were early in their careers and playing a lot together. And Butch has had an enormous impact, and I certainly respect all the wins and everything. But as I said, Harvey taught 5 players that won 252 times on the
That's impressive.
Tour. It's unbelievable, and what a legend. And I was so thankful that I got that opportunity and spent 3 years with him.
That's awesome.
And most importantly, he took an interest in me, and it's changed my life, to say the least.
Oh, that is absolutely great. Brian, what, in your view, what's been the biggest innovation in teaching golf? Is it video, alignment rods, the equipment, or what? Maybe
I
it,
think
maybe it's
it's
a cooler on the side of your golf cart to pack your beer in. That's what I like. You know.
I think when you look at things in there's two things in my mind that have really changed the game. I think the introduction of metalwoods totally changed how the game was played because, as you know, we went to a much harder, faster golf ball.
Yeah.
That's where the
Yeah.
ball started going further. The club heads it enabled them to make the club heads much larger,
Right.
which the dispersion became much tighter. It changed the curve of the ball and the curvature and
Yeah.
the dispersion rates off the tee. And then on the teaching side of it, I would throw all of the technology in. I think the launch monitor certainly has
Oh yeah.
enabled us to see things with path and face
Oh yeah.
that even video doesn't enable us to. And I think so. The combination video really helped us see things, how people were moving, how they looked. It
100%.
gave us a baseline. One of the things that I'm able to do with our system is, when I work with a player, when they do something really well, I tag it and I store it, and it enables us to go back, weeks, months, years later, and look back.
Take
Okay,
a
this
look.
is when we
Right.
were really hitting well, and look
Yeah.
at it and compare. So I just think the technology in general, launch monitor, combination video, combination force
I agree.
plates, really make the difference.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I absolutely agree. It's a great tool. Speaking of rolling back the ball, people in the golf media, we've had conversations, and I have lunch every couple of weeks with other people that are in golf media. They think perhaps a better solution rather than rolling back the ball is, you buy these drivers now that are 460 cc's, you could hit it anywhere on the face. Maybe shrink the face down to where it was decades ago. I don't know. There's a lot of possible solutions but let me ask you this, because I'm interested in your answer. And I've gotten a pretty good consensus from these guys, and we're all pretty much on the same page. Has money ruined the game of golf on the professional level, or hurt the game of golf? Not ruined it, hurt the game of golf.
I think the thing to me that is dangerous where we sit right now is, and this is where I think obviously money has brought more attention to the game of golf. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I think the amount of money that's in the game has brought a great deal of interest into the game, which I think is very positive and very good. Where I think money has really started to hurt the game is we're not seeing the superstars. And, we've just recently seen that Wells Fargo has announced next year or 2024 is their last year to sponsor the Quail Hollow event.
Right.
And that's been a fixture in the professional game.
Yeah.
Is the fact that now we've got the money to the level that tour players are no longer having to play as much. Dennis, when you and I were younger, we watched the evolution of Jack and Arnie
Right.
and all of those. And you go back into where
Right.
Hogan and where Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson and all the great players were playing. When you saw those, there wasn't the money there, so they
No.
had to play week in and week out. I can remember Dana Quigley when Dana first got on the Champions Tour. I think he played every event for 3.5 years because he said, I've never had the opportunity to make this much money
Yeah.
playing the game of golf, and he was not going to miss a week. And now when these elite players start to play less and less events, what happens to the corporate sponsor? What happens to the interest at the local tournament level where we host here in San Antonio, the Valero Texas Open?
Right.
Valero spent millions and millions of dollars, and yet we don't get a very strong field here, even though we were the week before the Masters. And, how much does that longevity-wise hurt the game? And I think it's something that, it's probably a good thing I'm not the commissioner of either tour, because I demand those guys play a whole lot more, because I promise you, you and I both know, boy, if I could make 3 times the amount of money I make and only work,
Oh,
15
totally.
weeks a year, I'd probably sign myself up for that right now.
Just ask John Rahm. He'll
Absolutely.
I think having the number 3 ranked player in the world go to live, I think it's a black eye on the PGA Tour. I know there are other really good players kind of waiting in line, if you will, and they've got to come to some kind of resolution. One of the guys, and I remember talking to you early on, how excited, and you've done great work with everybody, Brian, but how excited you were to be working with Jimmy Walker. I miss him because he just seems not to be playing all that much, and I love watching this guy play.
Well, and Jimmy's still a friend. We don't work together anymore, but one of the things, when he got the Lyme's disease, it really impacted, and this is, I talked to him recently, and he's better,
Yeah.
but he still has good days and bad days.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, you can have a great day today and wake up tomorrow and not feel like you have the touch. And where he's really struggled is with the touch aspects of the game. He was always one of the best putters I've ever seen, and he struggled with his putting. He's striking it well. He kind of got caught this year with the 1-year deal with the Tour too, where they did the fall finish.
Right.
He finished inside the top 125 in the FedEx Cup, but then they had the fall finish where he had to stay inside it, and he didn't play well after that and fell outside the top 125. So now he's only going to be able to play on a past champions category. And, he's not 50 yet, so he's in that no man's land. And Jimmy brought so much to the game, and I love watching him play, and a dear friend, and certainly a longtime pupil. So I always root for him.
He was just fantastic. Before I let you go, we only got a minute left. What's on tap for you? You got a
Well,
book?
I'm really excited to say I've got my wife has never been to Hawaii, and Mac's first event is the Sony Open. That
Oh, you're gonna
the
go?
second
Good for you. Oh, that's great.
So January the 7th, we're packing up and heading for Hawaii, and I hadn't been there in years and years and years. So
Good
I'm looking
for
forward
you.
to it.
Good for
And
you.
really excited for that, and then of course college is cranking back up in the spring, and I've got some really exciting things going on there. I work with 5 of the Baylor golfers, and they're really good this year. And Coach McGraw's one of my very closest friends, and I'm very happy to see them. They've got a chance to make a good run this year as well. So a lot of fun stuff going on. Mitchell Meisner, Mac's older brother, is actually going to be playing on the Korn Ferry Tour, and
Great.
I've got a bunch of other young players as well. So it's going to be a fun year as always.
Yeah.
So appreciate you having me on.
Good for you. And while you're on the plane on that 5 hours traveling to Hawaii, talk to your wife about coming out here, and it'll be great. I would absolutely love to have you out here. Anyway, Brian, I'll let you go. I know you're busy on the lesson sheet, and we always appreciate your time. You're one of our favorites. You're a credit to the game, and we're going to have you back sooner than later, my friend.
Dennis, thank you as always. Always a pleasure, and I enjoy listening to you when I'm not on. And thank you so much, sir. And always a pleasure, and happy holidays. And
You
I'll
too. You
promise
as well.
we'll make that trip out to Vegas.
You as well. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Brian Gathright, great teacher, great guy. And all right, we're going to step away, take another short break. We come back, we're going to finish off with another Golf Minute. Be right back after this.
As golfers, we want instant gratification when it comes to a better golf swing and playing better golf. Impossible, you say? Not anymore. Golf Boost Artificial Intelligence, AI, has developed and patented the most advanced swing analysis technology in golf. Simply, the algorithms detect your body position and then analyze your golf swing using their artificial intelligence technology. The AI captures all the relevant data from your swing video and then presents you a personalized lesson. Golf Boost AI is the ultimate swing analysis and virtual instruction system for golfers of all ages and abilities. This sophisticated software takes into consideration your height and build, playing level, and returns the ideal solution for your swing. Bottom line, Golf Boost AI is an incredibly convenient and cost-effective tool for golfers to improve their swing. Go to golfboost.com and check it out. The app is free to download and try. Visit golfboost.com today.
One of the perks about being in golf media is that I get to try every club ever made. Of course, like most things, some are better than others. I'm here to tell you that I have found unquestionably the absolute best performing set of irons I have ever played, and my scores show it. Let me introduce you to Grindworks, custom fitted irons that are made to fit your game. Grindworks offers players 3 different styles of irons. You can choose muscleback irons, cavity back irons, and even blades, along with some awesome wedges. And when you purchase your clubs, Grindworks lets you choose the type of shaft you want, the type grip you prefer, and even will adjust the loft and lie of your clubs if needed. That's unheard of. So what are you waiting for? Feel the power and experience and performance of these amazing clubs. Simply go to grindworksusa.com or call 281-651-4046 to order. Trust me, your handicap will love you for it. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to close out with another golf minute. Hope this little tip helps you improve your game. So take a look at this right now. Longtime teaching professional Tom Utzler. Tom, every golfer that plays around the golf is faced with this shot, trying to get the ball up and down from the fringe just off the green. What's your advice to help them do that, to make this shot easier?
Hey Dennis, I'm going to walk in from behind the ball and find an intermediate target where I want this ball to land on the green. I set up with the ball slightly back in my stance. I've got my hands a little forward, de-lofting the club face. I'm going to take it back slowly and then turn my body. Wow, Dennis, this Grindworks wedge feels great.
Tom, that was great advice. You've got some real talent, man. If I could do that, my scores would just bottom out. For the Golf Minute, I'm Dennis Silvers. We'll see you back next time. Well, there you go. Tom is a great instructor, great guy. He's been in Vegas a long time. Teaches up at Eagle Crest, which is in Sun City, Summerlin in Las Vegas, and a lot of fun to work with. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the 19th Hole Podcast for Golfers. For Brian, I'm Dennis Silvers, and we're going to see you back same time, same place next week with another terrific show. So until then, happy holidays to everybody. Get out and play some golf if you can, and we'll see you then. So long, everybody.